The city of Tyler is almost finished with a 10-year plan to upgrade the city's sewer and wastewater systems. KLTV7's Emma Burns has more on the progress made so far and how you can help keep the system clean.
Over the past 9 years, the city of Tyler has worked to meet federal requirements by improving its 734 miles of sewer system, 12,000 manholes, and 27 lift stations.
We have 1 full year left of the program, and then we are required to complete 1 bonus year. So we're definitely seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
In 2017, the city entered a 10-year consent decree program with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to address capacity and maintenance issues and create a new management program across the aging system. Even with the big updates, James Forbes, the president and owner of Pipeline Analysis, advises the city to maintain the implemented programs even after the consent decree ends.
And don't dismantle those core programs that are part of an effective asset management system and ensure regulatory compliance.
Those programs include the Fats, Oil, and Grease program, which helps combat the leading cause in system overflows.
Fog-related SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows, are definitely one of our greatest challenges right now. Fog is fats, oils, and greases, and our residents and commercial properties really have the power to help us impact that number and lower those SSO rates.
Curry says the city's inspections into commercial grease traps and assessment of the system have cut the amount of overflows in half. Now, they're hoping to lower that number to less than 5 per 100 miles of sewer line. Emma Burns, KLTV 7 News.
Now, if the city's consent decree projects fail to meet that April 2027 deadline, there could be fines from the EPA and TCEQ.